Hey guys, Jake here, and today I'm pretty sure if you're active in the Need for Speed community, you know that footage of the next game, Need for Speed 2021 as we know it, has just leaked out. I'm not going to be directly talking about the gameplay in here or analyzing it or anything like that, but obviously I'm going to mention it because it kind of sparks the discussion that I want to create for this video. There's an opinion I've had kind of for a while, and I think this opportunity is the perfect time to talk about it. So let me give a little bit of backstory first. This new gameplay just got leaked. I'm not going to tell you who it's from, I'm not going to link it, or I'm going to show it, I'm not going to show it, anything like that, but it exists, it's out there, and they drive Porsches in it, I'll say that. But plenty of fans, including the YouTuber Stray Up Hippo, and if you watch my channel, there's 99% chance you watch Stray Up Hippo as well. And he was very disappointed that the game was looking Burnout-like, and it wasn't like the type of direction he wanted, which is something like his game concept Need for Speed Tokyo Nights, which is basically just an illegal street racing Need for Speed that focuses on import tuners, car culture, and have a Japanese Tokyo-like setting. Many Need for Speed fans have come to really like his concepts, and there's been a lot of fan wants for this kind of game for Need for Speed for the last 3 to 4 years. And over that time, this want for a Tokyo Nights style game has been expressed for both Need for Speed and Forza Horizon. Pretty much every game that comes out is requested to be in Japan. People wanted Horizon 3 in Japan, people want Horizon 4 in Japan, and now people want Horizon 5 in Japan. People wanted Need for Speed 2017 to be in Japan, and people wanted Need for Speed 2019 to be in Japan, and now people want Need for Speed 2021 to be in Japan. I think the continuous requests with no one actually making this kind of says something or makes a point. I don't think any big AAA game developers actually want to do a game in Japan. I'll probably never know the actual reason, but it's probably just as simple as that. You can't really convince a game developer to want to change their map direction of their game based on what a community of people want. And at the end of the day, they're the ones making the big decisions. And if you were in game development, you would want to make your dream game too. You wouldn't want to listen to a few people on the internet to decide the direction of your entire big multi-million-dollar video game. I'm not trying to discredit the community or its wants. I understand the want, and I think the game would actually be really cool if they were to get a game like that right. But it also wouldn't make the game immediately good. The guys that want that kind of game probably acknowledge that too, but simply they want a direction of that type of game. So, what's up with the title of this video? Why shouldn't Criterion Games listen to the Need for Speed community? Isn't not listening to the community what's making the games worse? Well, kind of, in a sense that if you talk about the technical issues with the game, stuff like the RSR being OP for several years, the clipping issues with the handling, the graphical issues like the cars don't even have proper shadows for Pete's sake, lack of multiplayer and so forth, the actual features and technical problems of the game, I think the community should 100% be listened to, because those things, so many things at least, appear to just go way past quality assurance and be in the game for several years. And that was something Ghost Games did terribly. And I think the community listening should stop right about there. For technical issues and features and stuff with the game, I think that kind of stuff should be listened to. What I don't think should be listened to is actually the game's direction. Here's why. If you're a fan of Need for Speed, you may know that the past few Need for Speed games have been highly criticized for trying to kind of please everyone, and it's really clear that Ghost Games tries to do that. Specifically with the handling model and the cops. Everyone knows the cops in Ghost's Need for Speed titles have been really flaky. In Need for Speed 2015, they were extremely slow and kind of just non-existent. In Payback, they actually were non-existent. And in Need for Speed Heat, they're a lot better and they exist, but there are still some issues, like if you have a maxed out car, they still aren't very good against you, and they're a little bit too hard at the beginning of the game. And the reason for the whole cop situation being really flaky is trying to please the entire Need for Speed community. Need for Speed has been so many different things, and I think trying to call Need for Speed is just an illegal street racing game with cops at night with tuners, I think is actually discrediting Need for Speed a lot. Sure, that's a giant chunk of Need for Speed's history, but it's definitely not all of it. Now, if the first Need for Speed game was Underground, and they stopped at Carbon, and then they came back miraculously like 10 years later with Need for Speed 2015 and Need for Speed Heat, then you'd have a point. But there's also been all the Need for Speed Hot Pursuit games, all the original games before Need for Speed Underground, Need for Speed Pro Street, Need for Speed Undercover, Need for Speed The Run, the Shift games. Need for Speed has been nearly every type of racing game there can be, And I think that's become a part of its identity. Need for Speed is a ton of different things, and a ton of different things that people actually love. That's why you get 1,000 people asking for 1,000 different things on the same forums all the time. People want a Pro Street 2, an Underground 3, a Most Wanted 2 or remaster. I've seen people ask for a Shift 3. I mean, people love all these different kinds of Need for Speed games. It's just, I think, wrong to classify Need for Speed as only this thing and should only be this thing, because I think it actually discounts a lot of the franchise's history. However, Ghost Games took that so many people love so many things about Need for Speed and its history, and they tried to cram it all into one game. And that's why the cops have had such a mixed history in the Ghost Need for Speed titles. There were actually plenty of people saying, oh, well, Underground 2 was my favorite Need for Speed game, and I also like Pro Street, and I don't like cops in Need for Speed, and I just want to chill and cruise with my friends, and I don't want to be annoyed by that stuff. And so they kind of listened to that audience more with Need for Speed 2015, and that's why the cops were so slow. And then they tried to listen more with Need for Speed Payback, with making the cops a lot better and more aggressive, but then they limited them to just missions and the crates that no one really used. They probably brought them back in Need for Speed Heat, but plenty of people complained that they were too hard. The problem with Need for Speed in its history is that it's gone so many different ways that you can't really appeal to everyone. With how rich the franchise's history is, it's just not possible. This also extends to the handling. I've talked about on my channel before that the Need for Speed games before Need for Speed 2015 had much more stable handling models. Maybe they weren't the type of handling that you wanted in Need for Speed, but they were much more stable, they worked a lot better, and they just seemed finished. They weren't weird and clippy and all that other stuff. The reason we have the janky, clippy model now is because of Ghost Games trying to appeal to everyone. Need for Speed Rivals handling was perfectly fine. It was a perfectly working version of Brake to Drift. That wasn't what people wanted. People wanted grip, but they also knew people wanted and liked drift handling, so they tried to incorporate them into the same game with Need for Speed 2015 and its whole master slider system. And they couldn't really get either one working properly, and the game ended up having a super janky handling model that is known as one of the worst handling models in any racing game ever. So by trying to appease all the camps, they end up appeasing none of them. Next was Need for Speed Payback, where they mainly tried to smooth out the handling from Need for Speed 2015 and fix kind of the technical issues it had, and they very much did that. But Payback's handling model was just very boring. It was still based on drifting. People didn't like it, so they went to Need for Speed Heat. And that actually has improved grip handling. But now what's happened is that the drifting is absolutely garbage. To build a car for drift, you actually have to put on drag tires and all these ridiculous parts, and no matter how hard I try, with different parts I tried, I couldn't get the drift handling working. And it seemed to really be a 50-50 in the community. Half the community loved it and could get it working properly, and half of them hated it and couldn't get it working properly. And I say if your drift handling is only liked by about half the community, I don't think it's very good. Need for Speed Heat's grip even had problems. It's not amazing, it's pretty good, it's doable, but it's still not that great. It doesn't feel quite right. There's still strange understeer issues and times where you still need to drift and things like that. It's a very janky version of grip because it was built on the very janky Need for Speed 2015 model that they messed up by trying to appeal to both camps, and then they just kept building on a model that wasn't very good. And the handling that turns a lot of people off from Need for Speed games nowadays is from trying to appeal to everyone. And I think this whole focus on trying to appeal the entire Need for Speed community has really made Ghost Games games a lot more broken than they need to be. And you see, where Need for Speed Heat failed desperately in terms of its technical problems, it got really criticized, and people noted when it was announced that Criterion was going to be the main Need for Speed developer and Ghost Games was sacked, a lot of people pointed out that Hot Pursuit 2010 and Most Wanted 2012, maybe they weren't the games people wanted with the customization and street racing, but they actually worked. They had all the main features you would expect from a racing game. They had great graphics for their time. Their handling models actually worked really well, even if it wasn't what you might have wanted. And the game had proper multiplayer modes. It just actually felt AAA. It felt finished. It felt polished. Ghost Games have had none of that. The closest thing they had was Need for Speed 2015. It actually looked like a AAA game, and it had multiplayer features by the end of its life cycle, but it still had a super janky handling model and probably a couple of other issues. And then I say Ghost Games just went downhill from there. And I think a big reason Hot Pursuit 2010 and Most Wanted 2012 were actually a lot better than their later games was because Criterion kept their ears shut. They stuck to their guns and they made the game that they wanted. I know Most Wanted 2 didn't end up quite right and they had a lot of time constraints, But at the end of the day, their original vision wasn't, really trying to bring the community in, because the game still had weapons, it still had break to drift, it didn't have car customization. Car customization was the number one wanted feature around that time, and it still didn't have it in the beta builds. At least from what I know. If I'm wrong, you can correct me in the comments. But the game was still going to be called Most Wanted 2, and it was going to be more in the line of the original. But it doesn't mean people were going to be happy still. See, I think if it was still to have weapons and break to drift and no car customization, people still would have been pissed. I think people would have been more pissed at Most Wanted if it was Most Wanted 2 instead of just Most Wanted 2012. Because people would still call the game super different if it didn't have car customization. And at the end of the day, Hot Pursuit 2010 and Most Wanted 2012 weren't community requested and community developed games. They were just kind of, made off solely by the developer. And shocker to nobody, they ended up a lot better than any of Ghost's games ever did. I was talking about this with a friend of mine, JT Swan. You might know him on Twitter. He's pretty active in the Speak community. And we were talking about this exact topic, and he said, as much as I would love Tokyo Nights, I just want the developer to make the game they want, than rather to try to listen to 400,000 ideas and screw up their direction. That right there encompasses why a lot of problems with Ghost titles exist, like the handling and the cops and probably other things among that. Heck, I think the Speed Hunter Showdown exists in Need for Speed Heat because people liked Pro Street in the past couple of years, and it's been one of those beloved titles lately, so they recognize that and they try to make something in the game with it, but it's like super half-assed. The illegal street racing part, which is night in Heat, was clearly a lot more developed than the day part of it was. And that's just a little glimpse of some of the problems you get from trying to listen and appeal to everyone. So that is firmly why I believe Criterion games should not be listening to the Need for Speed community, at least in the direction of the game. Because the developers themselves with this gameplay probably have a clear idea of what they want, and now they're getting flooded with, because their gameplay leaked, which honestly I feel bad for them because everyone's judging this game before anyone is supposed to see it, and it's kind of like, as a content creator, and as someone who likes to just make things, I don't like people to see stuff before they're done. And I think this goes with creatives in general. Even just something tiny as, like, sometimes I'll be playing Animal Crossing and my mom is like, oh, what are you making on your island? I'm like, I don't want to show you that yet, because it's something I'm working on. I want to show her when it's all nice and neat and finished. And so I'll take something as little, small, and innocent as that to a big multi-million-dollar AAA video game getting leaked, probably by someone who should have no contact with EA or Criterion themselves. And I can imagine it's probably demotivating for the studio. And, I don't know how it all goes on over there, but I imagine some of them are probably watching those videos and maybe wanting to get influence, and maybe they get the idea of changing their game a bit. And honestly, I don't want them to compromise their vision and compromise the direction of the game because some people don't like it. Because I think if a game dev just sticks to their guns and doesn't try to appeal to everyone, the game will end up much better. Maybe not the exact game that some people want, but a game that is much better in the end. Because quite honestly, I would have rather had Criterion continue than Ghost do what they did. I had more of a fun time on Most Wanted 2012's multiplayer than I did on any of the Need for Speed Ghost games combined. That's not to say it was all bad, of course. I had a lot of fun in UFC 2015. I liked taking photos in there, I liked customizing the cars, and he has some really fun races as well, and I enjoy the cops in there as well. But in the end of it, the Ghost games have so much more issues than the Criterion games have, and I think a big reason for that is because they try to appeal to everyone, and they end up appealing to no one. Alright, so in general, I just really want to talk about that. This is not meant to take out anyone's view or opinion. I understand why some people would be disappointed, but this is my opinion. I'm open, I'm quite open to different types of racing games. I enjoy a lot of different types of ones. I mean, you can see that on my channel. I enjoy stuff from Burnout to stuff to like Assetto Corsa and Project Cars. I'm generally a very open person with racing games, so I'm kind of fine with most of the directions I think they would take. And Need for Speed in general, all I want is just a finished, polished game that looks and feels like it's actually from a AAA studio, which is what has been missing for several years. Anyways, I know this is kind of a hot take, but let me know your thoughts in the comments below if a game studio should rely on its community to direct its game or not. Anyways, I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys think, and I'll see you guys later.